Commodus was born into power. He was the son of Marcus Aurelius, an emperor remembered for discipline, philosophy, and restraint. Rome expected Commodus to continue this legacy. From an early age, he was raised in luxury, surrounded by tutors, soldiers, and servants who obeyed his every command. Yet beneath this privileged upbringing grew a personality marked by insecurity, cruelty, and obsession with personal glory. Commodus did not admire the ideals of leadership valued by Rome. He desired admiration, fear, and spectacle. Before diving into these lost stories, if you enjoy the content, please consider liking and subscribing, and comment down below where you are listening in from. I find it fascinating that we are exploring the same ancient stories together, despite being from different parts of the world. When Commodus became emperor, he inherited an empire that still functioned through structure and tradition. The Senate held influence. Military discipline remained strong. Public order was enforced through law and custom. Commodus quickly rejected these restraints. He viewed authority not as responsibility, but as personal ownership. The empire existed to serve him. Rome was no longer a state to govern, but a stage on which he could perform. One of the clearest expressions of his rule emerged in the arena. Gladiatorial games had long been part of Roman culture. They served as public punishment, religious ritual, and entertainment. Under previous emperors, the games followed rules. Gladiators were valuable investments, trained carefully, and rarely killed without purpose. Commodus transformed this system into something far more terrifying. He did not merely sponsor the games, he entered them. To Roman society, this act was shocking. Gladiators were slaves, criminals, or prisoners of war. They occupied the lowest rung of social order. For an emperor to step into the arena was a violation of every social boundary. Yet Commodus did not see disgrace. He saw glory. He believed himself the greatest warrior in Rome. He demanded to be admired, not as a ruler, but as a living god of strength. Commodus began appearing in the arena dressed as Hercules. He wore a lion's skin, carried a club, and demanded worship. He announced himself as the reborn son of Jupiter. Coins were minted, bearing his image as a divine figure. Statues replaced those of traditional gods. Rome watched in confusion and fear as its emperor abandoned restraint entirely. The gladiatorial contests under Commodus were not fair displays of skill. They were controlled performances designed to inflate his ego. Commodus never faced real danger. His opponents were armed with dull weapons or forced to fight at a distance while he attacked safely. Disabled men, wounded soldiers, and prisoners were placed before him as targets. Commodus killed them with arrows, spears, or clubs, while crowds were ordered to cheer. The terror did not come only from the violence, but from the meaning behind it. Every strike was a reminder that the emperor could kill without consequence. The arena became a place where power was displayed openly through death. Senators were forced to attend. They were required to applaud. Any sign of disapproval could be interpreted as treason. Commodus extended his cruelty beyond the arena floor. He ordered that people with physical deformities be dressed as mythological creatures and slaughtered for amusement. Men missing limbs were forced to play the roles of giants and monsters, only to be executed in mock battles. These spectacles blurred the line between punishment and entertainment entirely. The cost of these games was enormous. Commodus demanded to be paid for his appearances as a gladiator. He charged Rome massive sums for each performance. The treasury drained rapidly. To compensate, he increased taxes, seized property, and accused wealthy citizens of crimes in order to confiscate their wealth. Gladiatorial spectacle became a tool for economic exploitation. Fear spread through the city. Senators understood that their lives depended on constant obedience. A careless expression or whispered complaint could lead to accusation, arrest, or execution. Commodus surrounded himself with informants. Many accusations were fabricated, trials were brief, punishments were final. The games themselves grew increasingly violent. Commodus lost interest in staged performances and began demanding real blood. Gladiators were forced to fight to the death more frequently. Animals were slaughtered in massive numbers. Exotic beasts, imported at great cost, were killed simply to satisfy his desire for dominance. The arena became a place of excess cruelty rather than ritual. Roman tradition had once used the games to reinforce social order. Commodus twisted them into personal terror. The emperor alone decided who lived and who died. Law was replaced by whim. Public execution merged with private pleasure. Outside the arena, the empire suffered. Military discipline weakened. Commodus neglected campaigns and strategy. He preferred hunting, killing animals within enclosed arenas where victory was guaranteed. While he played at being a hero, real threats gathered along the borders. Rome's defenses weakened as attention shifted inward toward spectacle. The Senate attempted subtle resistance. Advisors tried to limit his appearances. None succeeded. Commodus responded by humiliating senators publicly. He forced them to attend banquets where they watched executions. He mocked them in front of crowds. Authority shifted completely from law to fear. Religion also suffered distortion. Commodus demanded worship. He renamed Rome after himself. He renamed months of the year in his honor. Traditional rituals were neglected. Temples were repurposed to glorify his image. To question this behavior was dangerous. Dissent was treated as betrayal of the divine emperor. The gladiators themselves lived in constant fear. Some were ordered to lose deliberately. Others were executed for appearing too skilled. Commodus demanded victory always. Even accidental injuries inflicted on him during performances could lead to mass punishment. Entire training schools faced execution after perceived slights. As months passed, the games grew more extreme. Commodus began executing criminals personally in elaborate rituals. He decapitated ostriches, then challenged spectators to laugh. Silence meant death. Applause meant survival. The arena became a psychological weapon. The terror extended beyond Rome walls. News of the emperor's behavior spread across the empire. Governors worried that refusal to imitate his spectacles would mark them as disloyal. Some attempted to replicate his cruelty. Public violence increased. Respect for law declined. Authority became associated with brutality. Commodus' paranoia deepened. He believed assassination attempts surrounded him. He responded with purges. Palace staff, servants, and guards were executed on suspicion alone. Former allies disappeared. New favorites rose quickly, only to fall just as fast. Stability vanished from the imperial court. The gladiator image consumed Commodus' identity. He no longer viewed himself as emperor. He was a performer whose worth depended on constant victory. Each appearance demanded escalation. The crowds became harder to impress. Violence intensified. Economic strain worsened. Trade suffered as instability spread. The grain supply faltered. Hunger increased. Commodus responded not with reform, but with distraction. More games, more blood, more executions. Rome was fed spectacle instead of solutions. The people reaction was complex. Some admired the emperor's brutality. Others feared him. Many remained silent. Public dissent was impossible. Even private criticism risked exposure through informants. Fear became the language of survival. Commodus' obsession with Hercules symbolized his detachment from reality. He believed himself invincible. He believed fate protected him. This delusion blinded him to danger. Those closest to him saw the collapse approaching. Eventually, the threat came from within his own household. Advisors, lovers, and guards understood that Rome could not survive his rule much longer. The treasury was empty, the army restless, the Senate humiliated, the people exhausted. A conspiracy formed quietly. It involved members of his inner circle. They feared that failure to act would destroy them all. The plan was careful. Direct confrontation was impossible. Commodus trusted no one, yet believed himself untouchable. The end came not in the arena, but in private. Commodus was poisoned, but survived. Panicked conspirators turned to brute force. A wrestler was sent into his chambers. Commodus was strangled. The emperor who glorified death died quietly, without spectacle. Rome responded with relief. Statues were destroyed. His name was erased from inscriptions. The Senate declared him an enemy of the state. The memory of his rule was condemned. Yet the damage remained. The gladiator games under Commodus changed Rome permanently. He revealed how Italy's spectacle could replace governance, how fear could silence law, how entertainment could become execution. The arena was no longer merely a place of ritual violence. It became a symbol of unchecked power. Commodus' reign demonstrated the fragility of Roman institutions. The system survived strong rulers, but collapsed under madness. His obsession exposed the danger of absolute authority without restraint. The terror of his games lived on in memory. Romans remembered the emperor who entered the arena not as a hero, but as a warning. The line between ruler and executioner had vanished. When power demands applause at the edge of death, society begins to collapse. The empire survived Commodus, but never fully recovered its sense of restraint. The seeds of instability grew. Future emperors learned that fear worked. The games continued. Violence remained central. The lesson was clear. Commodus did not simply terrify Rome through gladiatorial games. He transformed public violence into personal domination. He turned the arena into a mirror of his rule. Brutal, unpredictable, and driven by ego. His legacy was not strength but decay, not glory but fear. The gladiator emperor became a symbol of how power without discipline destroys both ruler and empire.